while I was sitting on the train on my way to work, I decided to check my bank account and oh god, I have no money. So, trying to deal with my inevitable future of living on the street giving blowjobs to strangers for Coles coupons, I decided to look up some rare horror games on eBay that I wanted to add to my collection, and holy shit, these games are expensive. My car doesn't cost as much as some of these games. And that is what led me to make this video. So sit down, grab a drink, depressingly look at your bank account, and let's talk about some of the most expensive horror games that are definitely not worth their ridiculous price tag. Haunting Grounds is a PlayStation 2 survival horror game developed by Capcom and released in 2005. Though not officially confirmed to be one, many people believe it is a spiritual successor to the Clock Tower franchise. Players control Fiona Belly, who is a young woman that is taken to a large and spooky castle after being involved in a cheeky little car accident. While chilling out in this castle, she encounters some creepy stuff, including this guy, who is a bit rapey. Oh god, please pick up the doll. Oh, please pick up the doll. While running away from this definite sex offender, she runs into this good boy named Huey, who fends off this guy who is probably why the sex offender list exists. With dog in hand, Fiona explores the castle, runs away from some more people who are probably way too friendly, and tries to escape. Huey is a major element of this game and weirdly enough was added to Haunting Grounds because Capcom thought players wouldn't enjoy playing a survival horror game as a female protagonist. Which makes sense because Capcom is famously known for not having any female protagonists in their horror games. Huey can explore the environment, attack the bad guys, find items, and just generally help Fiona out. You know why he does this? Because he is a good boy. When the game was released, it received pretty mixed reviews. Reviewers said the game was gorgeous, but they found the gameplay pretty repetitive. Critics praised the game's sexual objectification of Fiona, which was a weird sentence to write and a weird sentence to say. But they said Fiona being viewed as an object of great desire made the player feel more in danger when they were confronted by the enemies. But why is it so rare? Only a certain number of copies were produced in the West and sales for the game were way lower than expected. Shortly after release, it fell into obscurity. This lack of supply has jacked up the price and made it very desirable amongst horror game players. But how much does it cost? When I was checking out eBay, I saw the game ranging from about $150 to $400, depending on whether it is new or used. If you want to spend a lot of time with a dog in a spooky castle, it may be cheaper to find a stray on the street and just go to an abandoned house. Ill Bleed is a survival horror game developed by Crazy Games and released in April 2001. A developer I could not find any information about. Granted, I was watching BuzzFeed on Solve while searching, and my definition of searching in this case was just kind of clicking 2 links and then just giving up. I guess the mystery of who Crazy Games is will remain
unsolved.
The game opens with its main protagonist, Eriko Christie, giving a speech at her school's 18th speech contest. I can imagine suicide rates amongst students and teenagers is pretty high considering they have an annual speech contest. In her speech, she discusses her father and how he was a horror-themed park designer. According to Eriko, her father used to test all of his traps and props on her until she was about 6 years old. This is the greatest thing I have ever seen. After her speech, her friends tell her they have some tickets to something called Ill Bleed, which they claim is the most exclusive horror park in the world. Looking at this group of people, I highly question this park's exclusiveness. Also, you just heard your friend say a speech where she told you how she was traumatized by her father because he tested traps on her in this horror park that he made. And you think it's a great idea to invite her to one?
Kill! Look, we can win $100 million there!
Oh yeah, I would totally forget my trauma as well for that much money. 3 days passed and she doesn't hear from her friends, so she decides to investigate. She decides to finally check out this spooky place known as Ill Bleed, and the rest of the game consists of the player going through several horror parks, avoiding traps, and just generally trying to survive. Why is Ill Bleed so rare? Well, first, it was on the Dreamcast, a console famously known for failing miserably. Secondly, not many units were produced and the demand wasn't there, which made it a financial failure. Couple this with average review scores and gamers weren't clamoring to play Ill Bleed. But it has developed a major cult following. People love its weird B-movie style and the fact that it has non-linear gameplay mechanics. Also, people love the dialogue and voice acting, and I've got to say...
What, Michelle? Why didn't you listen to Eriko's speech?
I don't need to. I know she'll win.
I do too. and it's on a failed console whose games have become very desirable for retro collectors. So how much does this little Dreamcast game cost? Well, it ranges from about $110 all the way to $504. Well, this game's name is surely accurate. It's going to make your bank account ill and your wallet bleed. Nailed it, Thomas. Fucking nailed it. Clock Tower 1, known as Clock Tower 2 in Japan because games are stupid, is a point-and-click survival horror game released in 1996 and developed by Human Entertainment. The story takes place in the spookiest country in the world, Norway. No place is scarier than the happiest country in the entire world. This game is set after the original Clock Tower on SNES that was released only in Japan. I won't talk too much about the plot because it spoils the original game, but the vague narrative follows a couple of characters as they attempt to survive the murderous rampage of Scissor Man.
Help! Someone is following me!
Some kind of weirdo?
The game has a variety of endings based on the player's actions, so it has a lot of replay value. It is a point-and-click adventure game, so you do some pointing and you do some clicking, sometimes in quick succession. The power of video games, people. It's amazing. You will have to solve some puzzles, avoid some monsters, and try your best not to get cut in half by the giant scissor-wielding Angus Young from AC/DC. So why is Clock Tower so rare? Well, this is the interesting thing about Clock Tower. It was a financial success in Japan and was enough of a success that the developers received a bonus. But the major problem Clock Tower faced was out in the West. It was released at the peak of the survival horror genre on the PlayStation, so it had a lot of competition. Also, though many reviewers praised it, they only really recommended it to point-and-click adventure players. So that could have played a part. The fact it wasn't much of a hit out here in the country of Round Eyes, the amount of copies available was limited, which of course makes this so expensive. How expensive? Just ranging from $132 to $500. So if you want to save some money, just give your shortest friend a pair of scissors and make fun of their height enough till they want to kill you. If you manage to escape, you just recreate a clock tower. If you are killed, you get to die. So it's a win-win really. Michigan Report from Hell is a survival horror game developed by Grasshopper Manufacture and planned by Suda51. I don't know what that means, but it was planned by him. But he also made games such as this. The game focuses on a news crew for Zaka TV, who cover strange and creepy phenomena. They are assigned to cover some sort of outbreak occurring in and around Lake Michigan, which, oh my god, it makes sense why this game's called Michigan Report from Hell. God, games are clever. This area has been covered in a mist, which, unfortunately, is transforming people into leech-like monsters with a taste for human flesh. What is very interesting about this game is the player controls a television camera operator, and the whole thing is seen through his camera's lens. The main way the player interacts with the world is by tagging objects with their camera, which will draw the attention of the reporters and will get them to interact with it. This can be used to solve puzzles or fight bosses. One weird thing about this game is the 3 types of footage the player can film, including suspense, immoral, and erotic. You get the erotic points by filming up the reporter's skirt or filming porn nearby. So that is a thing in this game. Creepy sex stuff aside though, the game is extremely unique in the gameplay department and looks janky as hell, which is fucking beautiful in my eyes. But why is this game so expensive? And the reason why I'm saying this game is because I have a hard time saying Michigan. Oh, I got it that time, nailed it. The game only sold just about 30,000 units in Japan, and it was released in Europe, though Suda51 had no idea about that until an interview in 2008. It never made its way to the shore of the United States, and since it had a limited release in the West, localized versions of this game have become extremely rare. And considering Suda51 has a massive cult following and people know this, the cost of the game has skyrocketed. So how expensive is this thing? Oof. That's too much money. Well, it may be cheaper in real life to just be a perverted creep. Actually, on second thought, maybe it's actually better just to buy this one. Rule of Rose is set in England in the year of 1930, and the plot centers around a 19-year-old woman named Jennifer. She is led to an abandoned orphanage by a little boy and runs into some more children. But these kids aren't very nice. Well, all kids are assholes, but these ones especially. They kidnap Jennifer and take her to an abandoned airship, which is ruled by a group of young girls who call themselves the Red Crayon Aristocrats, who rank Jennifer as a lower class. If Jennifer doesn't bring them valuable gifts, the aristocrats will kill her. Oh, and she finds a dog named Brown to help her out in her adventure. Is that what you would call this? An adventure? Or like a something not adventure-y? Just play the clip of The Hobbit, please, go.
I'm going on an adventure!
This game is so rare because it was a little bit controversial when it was released. Upon its release in Europe, it sparked a moral panic. Rumours emerged regarding the game's apparent violence towards children, which, to be fair, is a great selling point. But some people believe there were scenes of children being buried alive, sadomasochism and underage eroticism. None of these scenes were actually in the game, but it created enough of a controversy that Sony didn't release it in the United States, the United Kingdom, or down here in Australia. Since the game wasn't available in 3 of the biggest markets in the Western world, a limited number of copies were published, which resulted in Rule of Rose being worth some big old dollary dues. How many dollary dues, you ask? It ranges from about 178 all the way up to 549, and sometimes you see for even more expensive. Or you could be really smart with your money and purchase just the disc in a limited edition discarded CD case for just $274. What a fucking bargain. If you want to experience this game but don't want to splash the cash needed to do so, just go to any RSL club, primary school, or children's birthday party. You will find loads of terrible kids at these places. Actually, don't do any of that. I don't want you ending up in a list of some sort. Kuon is a survival horror game released on the PlayStation 2 in America and in Japan in 2004, in Europe in 2006. It was developed by From Software, who aren't known for creating any famous games whatsoever. Shut up, don't talk about it. Kuon is based on an ancient type of Japanese horror story known as kaiden. I don't know why I said kaiden like that, which refers to any type of ghost or horror story, but takes heavy influence from Japanese folktales from the Edo period, which was between 1603 and 1868. Most of the game takes place in a feudal Japanese manor at night, which for me sounds like the last place I want to be when there are ghosts and ghouls about, but hey, that's just personal preference. The game follows 3 protagonists who the player will control in specific chapters, but in the beginning of the game, one of the characters visits the Fujiwara mansion to find their father, who is a famous exorcist. Exorcists don't generally just disappear on good terms though. You know they haven't gone on holiday to the Bahamas or some wholesome place full of sunshine and rainbows, so you know you probably don't want to go to where they have disappeared. That's just, some bit of advice from me to you. So as the player explores the mansion as one of the 3 protagonists, they will fight against several mutated creatures and other horrors that one could only fight in Japan. I honestly want a survival horror game where you fight against dudes who defend lolly anime on Twitter. But why is Kuon so rare? Well, the story behind why this game is so expensive nowadays isn't as juicy as Rule of Rose. It was simply because it had a limited release outside of Japan and had very poor sales, which, if we use our business brains for just 1 second, means that not many people own this game. So how much is Kuon online? It ranges from about, just $206 all the way up to, just $599. So if you want to find a cheaper way of exploring a Japanese location full of horrors, just contact your friends on Twitter with an anime display picture and just visit their homes. Just don't touch any of the figurines unless you are wearing at least 5 pairs of gloves and have so much disinfectant nearby. And what is the most expensive horror game I could find while on the train traveling to work? Yup, it's a Texas Chainsaw Massacre game on the Atari 2600 released in 1982. Based on one of my favorite films of all time, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game lets players control the handsome Leatherface. Well, at least the face of the person that he is wearing is handsome. The gameplay of this title is pretty simple. You as Leatherface murder people with your chainsaw while avoiding obstacles. Kill 5 people and you will refill your chainsaw with the blood of your victims and keep killing until your chainsaw stops working. And that is the entire game. So why is this one so rare? Well, it was one of the first horror games to ever be released. Because of that, it spurred a lot of controversy. There was a bit of outrage in regards to all of the violence, and as a result, many stores refused to carry it. I mean, look at all this violence. It's too graphic to even look at. Also, as a surprise to no one, many people didn't actually enjoy the game. I mean, look at this quality content. So the game was hardly stocked on a retro system that is highly collectible, and mix that shit together and BAM! You have a rare game that costs fuck. I collect horror games, and I've come to realize this is never sitting on my shelf. I think it might be cheaper to actually murder teenagers with a chainsaw. Nah, that would be a bad idea. But on second thought,